1947 A Soviet testing range in the Ural Mountains. A young, self-taught tank commander named Mikhail Kalashnikov watches as a prototype rifle is submerged in a pit of liquid mud, dragged through freezing slush and buried in fine sand. A Western rifle of the era would have jammed instantly, its tight tolerances turned into a liability by a single grain of grit. But when the Soviet soldier clears the barrel and pulls the trigger, the weapon doesn't just fire, it cycles with a violent, rhythmic perfection. This was the birth of the automat Kalashnikova. It was not the most accurate rifle of the 20th century. It was not the most elegant. It was, however, the most forgiving machine ever issued to an infantryman. In the decades that followed, it would become more than a firearm. It would become a global icon of revolution, a staple of every conflict from the jungles of Vietnam to the streets of Baghdad, and arguably, the deadliest piece of engineering in the history of human warfare. The problem? The lessons of the Eastern Front. To understand why the AK-47 is so dangerous, you must understand the trauma of the Soviet Union in 1941. During the German invasion, the Red Army realized that most infantry engagements happened at ranges of less than 300 meters. The long-range bolt-action rifles of the past were obsolete. The Germans had introduced the STG-44, the world's first true assault rifle, and the Soviets knew they needed a response. The requirement was simple but nearly impossible to meet. A weapon that possessed the fire suppression of a submachine gun, the stopping power of a rifle, and the ability to function in the hands of an illiterate conscript in the worst environmental conditions on Earth. The engineering, the secret of loose tolerances. Most Western engineers approach weapon design with the precision of watchmakers. They want parts to fit together with microscopic gaps to ensure accuracy. Kalashnikov did the exact opposite. He designed the AK-47 with loose tolerances. The internal parts of an AK-47 literally rattle inside the receiver. To a precision marksman, this is a flaw. To a soldier in a muddy trench, it is a miracle. When sand, dirt, or carbon buildup enters the mechanism, there is enough space between the moving parts for the debris to be simply shaken out or bypassed. The heart of its lethality lies in the long-stroke gas piston system. When a round is fired, a portion of the high-pressure gases is bled off the barrel to push a heavy piston backward. This piston is physically attached to the bolt carrier. The sheer mass of this assembly moving back and forth provides immense momentum, forcing the gun to cycle even when it is filthy, rusted, or unlubricated. The comparison, the American M16. If you are finding this analysis of military engineering interesting, a quick subscribe helps the channel continue these deep dives. Now, let us examine the legendary rivalry, the AK-47 versus the American M16 during the Vietnam War. AK-47 and M16 rifles. The M16 was a masterpiece of space-age tech, aluminum and plastic, firing a high-velocity 5.56 mm round. It was lighter and far more accurate at distance. However, its direct impingement system funneled dirty exhaust gases directly into the heart of the action. In the humid, muddy jungles of Southeast Asia, early M16s jammed constantly, requiring meticulous cleaning. The AK-47, firing the heavier 7.62 by 39 mm round, offered a different advantage. Stopping power. While less accurate at 500 meters, the 7.62 mm round maintained devastating kinetic energy at the close ranges where most jungle fighting occurred. Maintenance. A Soviet insurgent could drag an AK through a swamp for a week, wipe it on his shirt, and it would fire. Simplicity. The weapon consists of only about 8 moving parts. A teenager can be taught to field strip and reassemble it in under 60 seconds. The grim arithmetic. A global epidemic. The true danger of the AK-47 isn't just its mechanical reliability, it is its economics. Because the Soviet Union shared the technical blueprints with brotherly socialist states, the world became flooded with variants from China, Romania, Bulgaria, and Yugoslavia. Estimates suggest there are over 100 million Kalashnikov pattern rifles in circulation today. That is one rifle for every 80 people on the planet. In the grim arithmetic of modern war, the AK-47 lowered the barrier to entry for conflict. You no longer needed a highly trained, well-funded professional army to wage a devastating war. You only needed a crate of AKs and a few days of training. From the hills of Afghanistan to the cartels of Mexico, the clatter of the AK-47 is the sound of the asymmetrical battlefield. The legacy. Mikhail Kalashnikov lived to be 94 years old. In his later years, he was often asked if he felt guilt for the millions of lives taken by his invention. He famously replied, "I sleep well. I created a weapon to defend the borders of my motherland." It is not my fault that it was used where it should not have been. The AK-47 remains the most successful piece of industrial design in history. It is a machine that refuses to quit, a weapon that thrives in the absence of order. It proved that in the chaos of war, sophisticated technology often bows to the brutal efficiency of a piece of stamped steel that simply works.